Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney is in Qatar today. This is the first time a Canadian leader has visited the country for an official visit, and it's Carney's second trip to the Middle East in the past 2 months. He is trying to diversify trade away from the United States and bring in new investment.
We begin in Qatar, where Prime Minister Mark Carney has been meeting with political and business leaders to drum up more trade opportunities.
It's been a highly productive visit to Doha. This is the first ever visit by a sitting Canadian Prime Minister to Qatar. It marks a new era for our relationship, one in which we move from being close friends to strategic partners.
Canada, Qatar 290B strategic shock rewrites Gulf power, Trump's pressure collapses. This was never supposed to happen this way. When Mark Carney stepped off the plane in Doha, the assumption in Washington was simple: this would be symbolic, cautious, limited. Instead, it detonated a strategic realignment that now openly challenges American leverage in the Gulf. Canada didn't just sign agreements. It rewrote the rules of engagement, and in doing so, exposed how Trump's pressure campaign is producing the exact opposite result. Standing beside Qatar's Emir, Carney announced a partnership spanning trade, investment, artificial intelligence, aerospace, and defense with a $290 billion Gulf economy. It wasn't incremental. It wasn't exploratory. It was comprehensive, institutional, and deliberately constructed without the United States as an intermediary. For the first time, Canada elevated Qatar to top-tier strategic status, and the message was unmistakable: Ottawa is no longer waiting for Washington's approval. This visit alone broke precedent. No Canadian Prime Minister before Carney had ever traveled to Qatar in office. Not Trudeau, not Harper, not any leader in modern Canadian history. Diplomatic ties existed, trade moved quietly, but the relationship never reached this level. That changed the moment Trump's unpredictability turned economic pressure into a strategic liability. While Washington escalated tariff threats, floated annexation rhetoric, and weaponized trade policy, Canada quietly built alternatives. Qatar emerged as the perfect partner. A wealthy, stable state with outsized diplomatic reach, massive sovereign wealth, and a clear desire to diversify away from overdependence on any single power. The alignment was immediate. Qatar's economy approaches $290 billion, making it the third largest in the Gulf after Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Its sovereign wealth fund manages hundreds of billions in assets, actively seeking reliable partners for long-term deployment of capital. Canada, meanwhile, faces infrastructure demands, energy transition costs, defense modernization needs, and a technology sector hungry for global investment. The fit was obvious. The joint announcements reflected that reality. Accelerated two-way investment, artificial intelligence collaboration, quantum computing research, aerospace contracts, defense technology cooperation, advanced manufacturing, agriculture, and food security. Every major Canadian growth sector was included. This wasn't a single deal, it was a framework designed to last decades. One of the most consequential moves came quietly. Canada announced the establishment of a permanent defense attach office in Doha. This had never happened before. It signals sustained military-to-military engagement, deeper defense exports, training cooperation, and long-term strategic consultation. Not arms sales alone, but a relationship that embeds Canada inside Gulf security planning. Historically, the United States dominated Gulf defense markets. Massive weapons contracts, permanent bases, deep operational integration. American defense firms assumed the region was captive. Canada's entry disrupts that assumption. Ottawa offers advanced technology, globally respected training systems, and defense cooperation without political coercion. No sanctions threats. No policy alignment demands. No sudden reversals tied to election cycles. Qatar sees the advantage immediately. Diversification equals leverage. Reducing dependence on any single supplier strengthens sovereignty. Canadian firms benefit as well. Aerospace, simulation systems, cybersecurity platforms, communications technology, surveillance tools, all now have direct access to a market once filtered through Washington. Trump's core assumption was that pressure would force compliance. Instead, it accelerated independence. The technology dimension makes that even clearer. Artificial intelligence and quantum computing sit at the heart of this partnership. Canada is a global leader in AI research with major hubs in Montreal, Toronto, and Edmonton. Qatar is investing aggressively to build its own AI capacity. Together, they form direct cooperation mechanisms that bypass Silicon Valley entirely. Notice who is missing: Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta. None are central to this arrangement. Canadian firms and institutions are working directly with Qatari partners, supported by sovereign capital and long-term research funding. Trump's tech decoupling strategy politicized innovation. Canada offered stability instead, and Qatar responded. Quantum computing, in particular, carries national security implications. After years of stalled discussions with American counterparts, Qatar found a willing partner in Canada's quantum research ecosystem. Agreements now target joint development independent of U.S. gatekeeping. Legal architecture followed quickly. Canada and Qatar committed to concluding a foreign investment promotion and protection agreement by summer 2026. This provides investor certainty, dispute resolution mechanisms, and protection for capital flows. Nearly 10,000 Canadians already live and work in Qatar. This agreement makes expansion safer and accelerates Qatari investment into Canada. Qatar's sovereign wealth fund had already been growing its Canadian portfolio at nearly 20% annually. With new protections in place, infrastructure, energy, technology, and real estate investments are expected to surge. This is capital the United States wants, but cannot command. Trade relationships already existed between Washington and Doha. But Canada is offering something different: partnership without pressure. Collaboration without threats. Respect without unpredictability. In contrast to Trump's confrontational approach, Carney's diplomacy emphasized mutual benefit and long-term alignment. Trump's strategy aimed to constrain Canada. It produced autonomy. Every tariff threat made diversification urgent. Every insult made independence attractive. Canada responded by building alternatives, and Qatar became one of the most consequential. This partnership creates facts Washington cannot undo. It attracts global capital without American mediation. For Qatar, it is diversification and leverage.